Hello and welcome back to Pay Down Debt Solutions. My name is Jen, and on this channel, we teach you guys how to get out of your debts faster, just like we learn to get out of our debts faster. Now, how do we do that? How do we get out of debt in a quicker way than what we're doing today? Well, most of you today are sitting in the traditional banking system. And I propose that you kick the traditional banking system to the curb and try something called velocity banking. See, Dan and I, my husband and I, were in a lot of debt. We were in a lot of business debt, and we learned to overcome that debt by using velocity banking. Instead of sticking with the traditional banking system, we learned a different way. Now, what's very interesting about the fact that we learned a different way to bank was this. I am an ex-banker and an ex-branch manager, so I understand banking very well, and I understand the banking tools very well. But I did not know how to do velocity banking. I didn't even know it existed because the banks don't teach this method. So when I left the banking industry and became a business owner and found myself in a lot of business debt, okay, so my husband and I found ourselves in a lot of business debt. We had a lot of payments. We had a lot of money going out. We had money coming in, but we had a lot of money going out, right? So all of these payments had this chokehold on us, and we needed to get free and break free from the debt cycle. So how did we do that? We quite simply did it through velocity banking. So many of you out there are newbies and some of you are not. So what I want to do today is go over something really important, okay? Today we're going to go over how to get started with velocity banking. And more importantly, those of you that are just kind of starting a velocity banking program, we're going to talk about what is a debt destroyer and how do you pick one. So how do you pick your debt destroyer? And lo and behold, what is one? What is this thing called a debt destroyer? So to start off, we're going to go into what you're going to learn today. So how do you choose a debt destroyer as part of that? So today I'm going to walk you through how to use our 3-step strategy. This is how I got out of our debts, right? This is how my husband, we got out of our debts using our 3-step strategy, which covers picking your debt destroyer. We're also going to go over a quick overview on how velocity banking works, okay? How it works. And this is for our newbies out there. So those of you that might have heard of velocity banking but aren't quite sure exactly what it is, today this one's for you too, okay? And then 3, real life scenarios that our students run into and how to solve for them and choose your debt destroyer. And then we are going to work some numbers. We're going to work some math numbers so I can show you guys, especially those of you that are new to velocity banking, why this works. Now, velocity banking works using lines of credit. It works using the debt tools you already have, the debt you already have. So what is that big debt out there? Well, a lot of times it's those credit cards, right? So you can actually work velocity banking strategies using credit cards. So I'm going to show you guys a credit card scenario today with it and how we're picking our debt destroyers. So number 1, the first segment here, we're going to go over our 3-step strategy. So Dan and I built an entire course to teach you guys velocity banking. And we based it off of the 3 simple steps that we used to get ourselves out of debt using velocity banking. It makes it very simple, okay, and breaks it down into pieces for you so that you can get yourself out following a roadmap, right? So our first step in our 3-step strategy is to organize. You're going to be putting your income and expenses into a spreadsheet, okay? Into a spreadsheet so you know what is going on. And guess what? We have that spreadsheet for you free. Right under this video, you can click that first link that's going to take you to get our worksheets. Those are free for you, and it's going to help you because it's going to help you calculate your chargeables and non-chargeables, which those of you that are running a credit card strategy, that's very important. The credit card strategy, you need to break things into chargeable and non-chargeable expenses. Not difficult, but it helps to, break those down. All right. So the first thing you're going to do, you guys, is organize. Know what comes in, know what goes out, and you need to stick to some kind of a budget, okay? So does that mean you're eating ramen noodles for the rest of your life? No, it sure doesn't. It just means that if you guys stick to the budget that you're on currently, because most of us are pretty typical with how we spend, okay? So if you continue to spend how you're spending, in most cases, you can continue to live just like that and still get out of your debts much faster than what you're doing today. Now, don't go crazy, right? And if you can cut things out and pare things down a little bit and trim that budget, that's even better because your plan's going to work better for you. So that first step is to organize. Again, don't forget, grab your worksheets, tap below. Identify. The next thing you're going to do is identify. So you're solving for your debt destroyer. So you're picking that debt destroyer tool, and then you're going to decide what plan you're running, okay? Which cards go first, whether you're doing multiple cards or whether you're doing one card. In most cases, using one debt destroyer works the best, okay? Usually that works the best. There are some situations where you may need to use a multiple card strategy, and that works for you too, so that you can get more payments back, but that's typically when you're pretty maxed out, okay? All right, so organize, identify. Then the third is to implement. Well, that's the fun part, you guys. That is working your plan, implementing that plan, and running it, okay? So that's our 3-step strategy. All right, so we've gone over segment 1. We've discovered what the pay down 3-step strategy is, what Dan and I used. Now we're going to talk about segment 2, which is how velocity banking works and why it is the fastest way to become debt free. All right. I love velocity banking, and I love teaching you guys velocity banking because it changed my life. It changed Dan's life. It changed our life together as a couple. Because how many of you out there are arguing over money all the time because you have ridiculous payments, and one person thinks somebody's spending too much and the other person thinks you don't understand, you don't know how much things cost, right? I mean, I get it because I was there, right? Dan and I were there. So we're going to solve that for you. You're going to solve that for you by trying velocity banking. All right. So how velocity banking works and why is it the fastest way to debt freedom? Well, because you get payments back as cash flow. That is the number one secret to velocity banking. Well, there are a bunch of number one secrets, right? There's using lines of credit and average daily balance, and there is getting back your payments as cash flow. 2 of those really important things that make up velocity banking. Okay, so how do we start this? Well, all right, so this is our traditional banking system. This is our velocity banking system. Okay, so I'll label that. I'll do traditional. So this is traditional. Hopefully I spelled that right. And then this is velocity banking. All right. Now, the traditional banking system, all right, the structure here. It is your income, which is, maybe it's your paycheck, maybe it's your annuity, I don't know, maybe it's your retirement, your Social Security, whatever it is. It's some kind of income though, right? That goes in, it's going to go right into that checking account, right? Sounds pretty familiar. That's what most of you are doing. That's what's happening. So it comes in, it goes into the checking account, and then you're paying everything out of that checking account. So what are you paying? You're paying your car loan, you're paying your credit card 1, you're paying credit card 2. Maybe you're paying credit card 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know. You could be, because we see a lot of that. Maybe you're paying your mortgage, and you probably are, because that's how we pay mortgage payments, is through our checking account. You might be paying for a home equity loan, right? Or a home equity line of credit. Maybe you're paying, whoops, this is supposed to be loan here. Loan. Okay, so for a home equity loan. So maybe you have a mortgage, and maybe you took out a second mortgage as a home equity loan, because that's what the banks like to sell you, is that home equity loan, where you might have consolidated debt once already. Maybe you did that. So now you have your mortgage payment, and you have your home equity loan payment, and you have your car payment, and you have your credit card payment still, and you have your utilities, your phone, your gas, your groceries. All of those you are paying out of your checking account. That's pretty traditional. That's what everybody's doing, right? Now, this gets pretty messy, right? Because you've got stuff all over the place, right? You've got payments that are going everywhere, right? That's how it works. Now, with velocity banking, we do things a little bit differently, don't we? So those of you out there that already know what I'm going to say, know that we do things differently. We work with lines of credit, and that means we are putting our entire paycheck onto a line of credit as a payment, instead of putting it into the checking account. Now, what happens with velocity banking is your income comes in, right? And it's going to skip the checking account for the most part and go directly to the line of credit. Now, truth be told, right, it has to be directly deposited into the checking account, but in this case for about a minute, and then it's going to go right to that line of credit. So let's say in this scenario, let's just say we have a personal line of credit. Maybe it's a home equity line of credit, okay? So it could be a personal line of credit, a home equity line of credit, or a credit card. But in this case here, we're going to hold the credit cards off to the side because I'm going to show you guys a credit card example today. So let's say it's a personal line of credit, maybe, okay? So let's say, and no, we'll say it's a home equity line of credit because we're putting our HE loan into it. So we have our income comes in, it goes through the checking for about a second, it goes right into the line of credit. And from the line of credit, you're going to be paying out your bills, right? You're going to be paying out your mortgage, your utilities, your groceries, your phone, whatever else you have. Okay. So how does that work? Because it looks like it's going into a checking, Jen. I'm so confused right now. I get you. Sure you are. Okay. Here's what happens. Your line of credit, okay, is attached to a checking account. Because it's attached to that checking account, your money gets drawn from that home equity line of credit to pay your bills. So it passes through the checking account, right, to pay your bills because you can't pay or link it directly to a home equity line of credit in most cases. Sometimes you can because some of you get a credit card or a little card that's attached to that home equity line of credit. So you could be running things through that card. It's possible. But for simplicity's sake, let's just say we know it's attached to a checking account. So the money is going to sweep off of your line of credit to pay for your mortgage, your utilities, your groceries, your phone, whatever. Okay. Now, as you can see, in this case, this line of credit has eaten up some of my debt, hasn't it? This line of credit has eaten up credit card 1, it's eaten up credit card 2, and it's eaten up my home equity. This was supposed to be a loan, sorry guys. It's eaten up my home equity loan and my car loan, all right? So that line of credit took on these payments, right? And so now its balances are higher by whatever these balances were, right? It is. But what happens? These payments that I was paying are gone. I don't owe them anymore. So what happens is those payments go right back into that line of credit and work down my debt. So my income goes into my line of credit, that home equity line, let's say, and my payments that I would have been paying on those debts now are worked back into that line of credit, okay, because I don't have to pay them anymore. They're gone. They're in that line of credit. So my overall expenses have been reduced, okay, which means I get that back as cash flow. So my overall expenses have been reduced. And now I'm just paying my mortgage, my utilities, my groceries, my phone, whatever else my living expenses are out of this line of credit. So what does that do for you? Well, it gives you payments back that then become cash flow to you. All right, that's one of the things it does for you. The other thing it does is it is working on the average daily balance. Okay, loans are amortized. That means they're front end loaded with interest. Okay, that interest is all front end loaded. The banks get their money in interest right away. And then as that loan works down, the interest becomes less, but your balance at the beginning of that of that loan, right? Your balance is high, and your principal payment, very little goes to that principal payment in the beginning, and that starts to increase as the loan goes on. Okay. Now, with a line of credit, your interest and your balance both go down at the same time. So when I put a chunk payment like my income into that line of credit, immediately my balance is reduced. So if this was 25,000, let's say, and my income was 5,000, my balance goes from 25,000 to 20,000 immediately. So my interest drops. Now, my expenses are going to come back into that, right? They're going to come back in. So it's going to come up a little bit, but nowhere near as long. Okay, that high balance isn't going to be there as long because it comes back in slowly throughout the month. So it's done on an average. So I'm going to show you in working numbers what that looks like, okay? All right, so now we know the difference. The difference is traditional, your money goes into your checking account and all of your bills are paid out of your checking account. And in Velocity Banking, your money passes through the checking, gets put onto the line of credit, your balance immediately drops, cash flow comes back to you because you're taking care of whatever debts you have in here, all right? That you were paying all those debts out here, right? You were paying them here, but now your line of credit has absorbed those debts. So your payments then come back to you as cash flow, helping to keep those balances down as well, right? And then or work those balances down, I should say. And then as you need to pay your bills, like your mortgage, utilities, get groceries and gas, then it just sweeps to the checking and it pays right out of the checking. Very simple. Very easy. It's where you put your money, you guys. It's all about where you put your money. That's what Velocity Banking is about too. All right. Where you put your money, the fact that you're putting income in and your entire income goes to work for you right away, and then the average daily balance. All of that makes this very powerful and cuts time and cuts interest. All right. So segment 3, how to solve for or pick your debt destroyer. So what's that? What is a debt destroyer? What is it? Well, it's that tool you pick, right? It's that tool, that instrument you're going to use. In this case, it was a home equity line of credit, okay? But maybe it's a personal line of credit, or just maybe it's one of your credit cards. Maybe that becomes your debt destroyer. So here we have 3 different scenarios. We have scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario 3. They're all very different from each other, okay? They're very different. So in each scenario, we have to solve for what we're going to be using as our debt destroyer, okay? What are we going to use as our debt destroyer and what's our plan, right? That's always our implement stage. We've organized, we've already done that in each of these scenarios. So now we need to identify that debt destroyer and identify our plan. So in scenario 1, you can see we have credit card A. It has $8,500 as the balance. $280 is the payment. It is at a 22% interest rate. And if they were to leave this in a traditional banking system rather than Velocity Banking, it would take them 3 years and 9 months to pay that first card off, card A, and it would cost them $4,033 in interest for $8,500 borrowed. That's a lot of money in interest. The banks get a lot of money off of us in credit cards. We're going to stop that. We're going to stop it now. Now, this card here, we're going to say is at a limit of $9,000. Okay, so $9,000 is the limit. So we don't have much room. Not a whole lot we can do with that one right now in terms of pulling in other debts, right? We can't pull in the $3,000 because that would put us over a 9. So we can't do that. So we know that right away. Now, credit card B is a $16,000 limit. It's at $14,200 as its balance. $475 is the payment on that. It is at a 24% interest rate. It would take 3 years and 11 months to traditionally bank this out at that $475, and it would cost them $7,653 in interest, okay? So think about that, you guys. Half of this balance right here is what you're going to pay in interest. You're going to pay a lot of money for that one balance. For that one borrowed amount of money, you're paying a lot. Now, credit card C, $4,000 limit, $3,100 balance, $95 a month is your payment. It's at a 19% interest rate. That is our lowest rate that we have here. It would take 4 years to pay this off at that $95, and it's going to cost $1,297 in interest for $3,100 borrowed. All right, so what are we going to do with this? Now, when we look at our rules for Velocity Banking, the first thing we want to do is get back the most we can in our payment. So we want to go after the highest payment always. That is the card we're trying to use as our debt destroyer in most cases, okay? And so that's exactly what this situation here looks like, okay? So we know based on that, which card do you think you're going to use as your debt destroyer? Which one? Well, it becomes pretty obvious, right? It's going to be card B. We want to get back this $475 payment. We want to do that immediately if we can, right? So we want to get that back. So if that becomes our debt destroyer in this case, right? We can't roll the $3,100 onto this, right? We can't do that because we know that's at a 22% interest rate. That would be great because it would be a lower interest rate, but we can't do that. And we certainly can't go the other way, right? We can't put $8,500 onto this card because it's at $4,000 as the limit. So we can't do either one of those things to try to take advantage of the lowest interest rate possible, right? We can't. So we're going to take and do what we always do and go for the largest payment. I don't care that it's at 24% because I'm going to work that down really quickly with my income that I'm getting back because I'm going to get this $475 back. Why is that, Jen? How do you get it back? What do you mean by that? I mean this. When you put your income into this line of credit, and in this case, it's a credit card, your income is more than that $475 typically, okay? So that means you've satisfied that payment when you put the bigger income into it. So that payment then comes back to you, all right, and works down that card because you're putting more on it. It's the interest that's worked inside of this payment, right, that you owe the bank. You always owe that. But the rest of that payment helps you work, you get it back to work down your card. And that's how Velocity Banking works. Now, this example is what I'm going to show you guys later on the board. Okay, so I finished all my numbers here for you. Now, the one thing you have to remember with credit cards is this. You have to break credit cards into chargeable expenses and non-chargeable expenses. And the reason is you can't pay everything out of your credit card. You can't pay for loans, any loans, and you can't pay other lines of credit. You can't. You can pay all of your living expenses, everything else, utilities, all of that. But any loans and any lines of credit, like other credit cards, you cannot pay out of a credit card. So what you have to do is roll cards into your debt destroyer when they are able to, or when you are able to. And then you're taking the payment from another card plus the balance and putting it onto that credit card, your debt destroyer. So that's how we would work this down, okay? And that's what I'm going to show you later. We're going to take our debt destroyer, which is going to be our card B here, and we're going to start rolling the other debts into it as we can, as we work that card down. All right. So what I've done here too, to show you that, is I've broken it down into available income and chargeable expenses. Now, what do I mean by available income? Well, our available income is we have to hold back anything that we're paying, such as mortgages, car payments, anything we're not rolling into that card, right? Mortgage payment, car payment, any other credit card payments that are going to run alongside our debt destroyer, that income has to be held out into the checking so you can pay that out of the checking, all right? Chargeable expenses. What you're doing is you're taking your total income. So here it is my total expenses. I'm sorry, my total expenses, and here's my total income. So the chargeable expenses, the calculation is you're taking your total expenses and you're subtracting off everything you have to hold out, okay? So in this case, the $1,550 is representing my car and my rent, okay? My car and my rent. So that's why I have the $1,550 here. That's where that comes from. So car and rent, car and rent. So I take my total expenses minus my car and rent, minus my $280, my $475, and my $95, because those are non-chargeable expenses. So I have to take my total expenses, minus out everything that's non-chargeable, and I'm left with chargeable. So in this case, I have $250 as my chargeable expenses. Now my available income, I'm taking my total income and I'm subtracting out everything I have to hold out. Okay, the income I have to hold out to pay through my checking account. I'm holding that back into my checking. All right. And that's what these represent: my rent and my car, my $280, because that's not my debt destroyer. I have to run it alongside my debt destroyer, my $95, because I'm holding it out right now. I'm running it outside of my debt destroyer. Okay. So I'm holding those out. And then what happens is I don't have to hold out the $475, right? Because I'm putting every bit of my income that I have available to me on it. So I get that back. So I don't have to hold it out. So it's everything minus my debt destroyer, which means I have $800 as my available income that I'm going to put on that card, which is significantly more than the $475, right? It is. All right. So now we know in scenario one, our debt destroyer is going to be card B, and we are going to learn how to work that down later. Now, scenario two, we have a car loan for $18,500. The payment on that is $510. It's at a 6.9% interest rate. We have card A at $6,000 limit, $4,900 balance, $310 is what we're paying on that. It's at a 23% interest rate. And then we have card B here, okay? $6,000 is my limit. It's a $5,000 balance. $50 is my payment. Now, this one's interesting because this one is at 0% for 14 months. And then after that, it's going to go to 24%. Now that's interesting, right? Because we wouldn't want to use that as our debt destroyer, would we? If we have 0% and we want to take advantage of parking some money for a while. Even though we have a low payment here, it's $50, but we're borrowing time is what we're doing, right? And we're borrowing it without paying interest. So that is an interesting situation, right? And now we also have a personal line of credit with a $7,200 balance. It's at a $57 payment and it's at 9.5%. This one is at a $15,000 limit, okay? Well, I obviously can't use my highest payment, right? I can't use the $510 because it's a car loan. I can't use a loan because it's closed-ended. If I put, my entire income into that, I'm never getting it back. It's going to be made as a payment. That's it. Too bad for you, right? It's gone. So I can't use that, and I'm not going to. So then I'm going to look at card A. It's at $6,000, $4,900 is the balance, $310. That is my next largest payment, okay? So maybe then I use that. Maybe that becomes my debt destroyer. It's at 23% interest rate. Well, I could do that maybe. Maybe that's what I could do. All right, so I move on and I look at card B. We already said that's at 0%, $5,000. We have $1,000 left here. We have what? Like $2,100 left on card A. Okay, so I can't really move anything onto it, can I? So I can't really use that, even though the 310 would be great to get back. But I do have this, right? I have a personal line of credit. It's sitting at a $7,200 balance. Now, it's a small payment, right? But I have room to pull in other debts, don't I? So I could pull in either one of these debts and start getting back some money, right? Now, I wouldn't want to pull in the 0% maybe, right? Because it's at 0%, I'm parking some money. But I could essentially get back the 310 by pulling this into this. And now I have the ability to have two payments, right? That I'm essentially getting back to me. So there you go. So that's what I would do here. So I would get back $367 in a payment if I rolled card A into my personal line of credit. Okay, so that's going to be what, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12-ish, 12,000 or so. So I can't really move anything else yet, but I can start my plan. I can start it and do a pretty good job with that. So that's how I'm going to pick my debt destroyer in scenario 2. It's going to end up being that personal line of credit. Now, scenario 3, we have card A, card B, card C, card D. Card A, it's at $18,000 limit, $12,000 is the balance, the payment's $380. Card B, $20,000 limit, $1,800 is the balance, it's at $65. Card C, $2,500 is my limit. I'm at $2,200, so I don't have much room there, $75 payment. And I have card D, $3,000, $900 balance with $35 as my payment, okay? Well, let's see, what can I do here? So my 12,000 is my balance, right? So maybe what I could do here, can I roll anything? Can I roll it and put it into card A? Can I put everything into card A? Well, let's see. If we take, maybe I can, right? So if I have 12,000 plus 1,800 plus 2,200 plus 900, well, that equals 16,009, okay? So 16,900, so long as I can move these balances over onto my card, I certainly could do that. And then you have a lot of like little balances here, right? These little balances then add into the 300 or the 380, right? So then I have all of these. I can move them all essentially into my card A. But let's say this balance wasn't this high. Maybe it was at, oh, I don't know, let's say it's at 12, okay? So if it's or not 12, let's just say it's at 13. Then I really don't have a lot that I can do, right? I can't really move anything necessarily onto this card. And if this one was lower too, you guys would have to look at it. Let's say these balances were super low. Let's say this was 2,000 and this was 12 or 13. Sometimes you have to look at it and go, okay, well, maybe I can take a bunch of little debts and roll them together, okay, and work them together and put that into one of these cards. Well, if you have the availability, right, on one of these cards to take a bunch of smaller debts, then you do that. Because if you could do that, it would be 65 plus 75 plus 35, right? 175 if I did that right. So that becomes, added up a bit, more than just one, right? You could do that. You could move it into another balance if you have a little bit of room, but not a lot, right? You could do that. So sometimes it's just working the numbers, and sometimes you're going to be taking a bunch of little balances that are going to be more than your larger balance. So you guys just have to look at it and logically think through your process, how you're going to take care of it. All right, so now I want to go over scenario 1 here for you. I want to run the math to show you how a velocity banking plan looks when you run it with credit cards. Okay, I promised you I would do that, so that's what I'm going to do. So give me a second and I'm going to write the numbers on the board and we're going to work through it. So we're going to wrap up our velocity banking scenario here for you. So in this case, I said I was going to use credit cards because many of you have credit cards to use. You're trying to figure out how you can work down your debts through credit cards. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. So in our first scenario here where we were trying to figure out our debt destroyer, we are going to use credit card B as our debt destroyer, okay? And that has a limit of $16,000. Now, we've calculated our available income by taking our total income and subtracting off, this was our car and our mortgage. We're subtracting off our $280 for our card A and $95 for card B. We don't subtract off this card because we're going to be using that income, okay? We're going to be using that income into what we're putting onto that card itself, which is, so that becomes $800. Then we take our total expenses, figuring out our chargeable expenses, what we can charge on our credit card, okay? Living expenses, gas, groceries, whatever. Chargeable expenses, $26.50 minus $15.50 minus $280 minus $475 minus $95, okay? And that is, again, your car and your mortgage, rent, whatever it is, minus the $280, the $475, and the $95, okay? Now, $250 would probably be less in chargeable expenses, in living expenses than we do, right? But we're working scenarios here so we can show you how the math works and how everything works. So, $250 would probably be pretty light because groceries alone are going to probably be more than that unless it's a single person, right? I guess it could be less, maybe $100, maybe gas and some of the utilities. Hard to say though, right? So with a lower income like this, and that's why I wanted to show you guys that too, because whether your income is high or whether your income is low, you can work these plans. You can work a velocity banking plan. And this is considered, some lower income. Now, how do we run this then, right? What do we do? How do we do this? Well, we take our credit card, our card B, all right? And we start with that card. So we start and we're going to put our income in, which is $800. We've already calculated the income. It's $800. We're putting $800 in. It drops us to $13,400 immediately, right? Because that $800 goes in, that chunk goes in, it drops us to $13,400. So no longer is our interest calculated at the $14,200, but it's not calculated at the $13,400 either, right? Because you have your expenses, your chargeable expenses coming back into the card and the interest coming back into the card. So throughout the month that happens, right? So that's going to bring the balance back up, all right? So what happens is we calculate our interest based on the high balance plus the low balance. You divide by 2, okay? So I always like to do that with you guys so you understand where these numbers come from. So we have $14,200 and we're going to add it to $13,400. That gives us $27,600, but we divide that by 2 to get our average. So $13,800. Now, this part, the $13,800 is our average. We have to then multiply by our interest rate. Well, what's our interest rate? Well, card B, we've got an interest rate of 24%. Okay, so we're going to we're going to multiply by the 24%. So 14 to, you know what, I wonder if I did it on 22%. Hold on, 14,200 plus, sorry guys, I cleared it. 14,400 equals, divide by 2. I don't know what I did there. Hold on, 14,200. Okay, plus 13,400 equals 27,600. Okay, divide it by 2, which gives us 13,800. And then we're going to multiply that by 0.24. And then we're going to divide that by 12, which gives us, 276. Okay, 276. So that's where we get it, right? So we take your high balance plus your low balance, you add them together. You take that total, divide it by 2 to get your average. Then you're going to multiply it by 0.24 or 24%. Then that number is a year's worth of interest. So you divide it by 12 to get 1 month. And we divide it by 12 each month that goes by, because we're only doing a 1 month average. It's going to go down every single month, isn't it? If you're running your plan correctly. Now, 13,926 is less than the 14,200, right? 14,200. So we know our strategy is working. It is working. Our plan is working. So we will start to run this, okay? Now, at 7 months, we have the ability to pull in our next credit card, because at 7 months, our debt destroyer has dropped to $12,160. Credit card, card C here, credit card C, the balance at 7 months is down to $27.63. Now, why did I pick that? Why did I pick credit card C? Because I want to try to get back as much in terms of payments as I can, as soon as I can. And so the quickest I'm going to get that is by taking credit card C, okay, because the balance is low enough to roll that in. So I want that 95 back to me, okay? So that's what I did here, all right? So that's why I picked credit card C. So, okay, so when we add them together, the 12,160, so the 12,160 plus the 2763 equals 14,923, but we have to add in the 110. Okay, so that equals 15,033, which is what I've got here. Now, where did I get the 110? Well, when you transfer balances, you're going to have a balance transfer fee. And I always use about 4% because it's anywhere from 2% to 5%. And I see 4% almost always right now, so 4%. So that means about $110 approximately, right? This isn't the perfect way to do it, but it kind of works. It gives you pretty close. 110 bucks. So you're going to add in the 110 to get the 15,033. Now, here's what happens though. We got some payment back to us, right? We got the 95 back, all right? So the 95 right here. So now our income is $895. So we have 15,033 as our starting point. We subtract $895 and we're down to 14,138. 14,138 plus the 250, right? Plus the 250 plus our interest by calculating the high and the low, the high balance plus the low balance, you add it together, divide by 2, then you multiply by your interest rate, the 24%, your interest rate, and then you divide that by 12, so that gives us the 291. So then we now have 14,697 is our starting point for the next month. Now, 14,697, is that higher or lower than the 15,033? Well, it's lower, so it's working. Our strategy is working, okay? All right, so now this runs for 14 months, okay? And at 14 months, our debt destroyer balance is $93.81. The interest that we paid is $3,378, okay? And now card A, what the balance of card A after all of this time, right, which is what, 21 months at this point? So it's what, 14 plus 7, yeah, 21 months. So after 21 months, card A balance is down to $5,354, okay? And so the interest we've paid there is $2,734, okay, in that 21 months of time. So that means we have to then do another balance transfer, right? We have to balance transfer again onto, for card A, onto our debt destroyer, which is our card B. So we have to, again, we have a balance transfer fee, and that's going to be $214. So we take our, let's see, where are we at here? So we take our 214 and add it in. So we get, let's see, so we've got 93.81 plus our 53.54 equals 14,735, and we have to add in the 214. So that gives us the 14,949. Okay, so that's this plus this plus this, right? All right, so 14,949. Then our income, we have another income raise, right, of 280. So now we are at 11,070. I'm sorry, 1,175. So 1,175 is our income. So now it drops our balance to 13,774 plus our expenses, our chargeable expenses, plus our interest. So we start the first month or the next month out, month 2, we're starting out at 14,287. Well, 14,287 is less than 14,949. So our strategy is working. So now what do things look like? Okay. This part is going to take 18 months to run, and we're going to spend $26.77 in interest. Now we have to be fair, right? We have to calculate all of this interest. We know that if we were working a traditional banking system, okay, if we were working in the traditional banking system, it was going to cost us $12,983, and it would take us no less than 4 years, all right? No less. Well, what have we done here? We've taken 7 months, we added it to 14 months, that's 21, and now we add 18 months, all right? So what happens is it well, we'll calculate that in a second. So we've got, what did I say? So 14, well, we know we're at 21. So 21 plus 18. So that equals 39 months. We divide that by 12. So in about 3.25 years now, we've accomplished our plan. But what did we spend, right? We have to calculate all of this interest that we've spent along the way. So let's do that, all right? So let's do that. Well, here, we'll put this off to the side. So our interest here, all right, we've got 1810, 328, 3378, 2734, and 2677. So add it all up, that's $10,927 that we spent in interest. We were going to spend $12,983. So we've saved $2,000, okay, doing it this way. And we've shaved 9 months of time off, okay? Because what did I say? 3.2 years, where it was going to take up to 4 years here. So wait, no, that 10, almost 10, right? So 9 something. So 9 something in terms of months. So we've saved how much then? Let's look at this. We'll look at the hard numbers. So we've saved then $2,056. We've saved about 9 months of time. But here's the thing, you guys. When you run these velocity banking strategies, okay, you've saved $2,000 and you've saved time. But you're actually going to probably save more than that, because here's why. You eliminated pretty quickly card A and card C, okay? Those cards are gone. How much do you want to bet that those cards are going to come crawling back with a 0% offer to get your balances back? Most likely they're going to. And if they're not going to, somebody else is going to offer you a balance transfer. And if that's the case, you won't spend $26.77, because this money here, the $14,949, will more than likely be put on a 0%. And if you do that, okay, so what would you spend? So we take our $10,927 and we subtract off our $26.77. So it's $8,250, okay? So $8,250 would be all you spend. You're probably going to spend about the same amount of time, because this is at 0%, right? If you ran this at 0%, it's going to be 18. Maybe you'll shave a month off or so, maybe a month or two. So it'll be about the same time, but you won't pay any interest. So you won't pay this interest. Now, you will have a balance transfer fee, right? You're going to. So what is that? Let's say, okay, so if we transferred $14,949 onto a 0%, and let's see, and so the balance transfer fee we know is about 4, right? 4%. So 59, let's see, 597, about 598, right? So it'll cost you 598. So you add to the 80, whatever I just had, 500 bucks, right? So you're still under $9,000, okay? So you've saved a heck of a lot of money just by running a velocity banking strategy, and you've saved time. This is why we velocity bank. This is why we teach it to you. We're always working you guys towards those lines of credit, you know, the PLOCs, those personal lines of credit, those HELOCs, if you have the ability to do a HELOC, because they're cheaper in interest. So they'll cost you less over time. So we're always working you that way, but absolutely you guys can do this with those credit cards. Hope you've learned something today. And remember, you guys grab your worksheets, get your worksheets from below this video. If you want to check out our course so you can do this on your time, you're sitting, from your couch, right, learning it all in order, get the course. It has the app inside of it that does all the math for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Helps you pick your debt destroyer, all that good stuff. And you guys have us. Come to our groups, come to our Wednesday calls, right? We do coaching calls. We'd love to see you there. Have a great day, and I hope you've enjoyed the Velocity Banking lesson.